If I was to ask you what is the most sadistic level in Doom 1 and Doom 2, which level would you choose? For a lot of players, I suspect the answer will be found in the first two outings of Ultimate Doom's Thy Flesh Consumed episode, two levels which have become infamous for their insane difficulty spikes. Of the two though, I would argue that E4M2, Perfect Hatred, is probably the champion of sadistic. I'd even go as far as to say it's John Romero's most controversial contribution to the retail classic Doom experiences. Revered by many and reviled by others, it's an experience that separates the Doom Slayers from the Doom players. At least that's the claim on the tin when you speak to the level's supporters. Adding to the level's mystique is the claim that John Romero knocked this level out in anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. The number shifts depending on who's telling the story. So with all the preamble out of the way, is this level actually any good? On Ultraviolence, this level throws an avalanche of enemies at the player right from the word go. Two shotgunners flank the player, in front of them are imps and pinkies, and bringing up the rear, but not for long, is a slew of cacodemons who will be on top of the unready so fast they might as well buy them dinner beforehand. If that wasn't enough challenge, the player is perilously placed above a pain floor that will steal health from the unready. A single rad suit is the only form of protection for the careless. Even getting out of the lava can be a chore. The stairs leading up from it are covered in lava and lead to a room stuffed with imps and spectres. It's definitely an opening which straddles the line between cruel and challenging so mercilessly that some players do not like this experience. The level after this doesn't dial down the torment either. More pain floors, more narrow walkways, and a slew of barons of hell who act as pace breakers in the momentum for the player, forcing tight encounters and sometimes shameless shotgun sniping from afar. The fact that the level ends with a cyber demon peering from his pen and basically not being the biggest threat to the level showcases how merciless this experience actually is. One of my major gripes with this level is the sheer quantity of barons of hell throughout. The level seems insistent on using them as traps to force the player into either making mistakes or depleting what little ammo they have. The area that I feel captures this spirit the most is when you're trying to grab the yellow key. Grab the yellow key and a baron will appear right in front of you. Not only this, several come out of a wall behind the player. In this moment the player has a choice to retreat down the narrow walkway and dodge like there's no tomorrow, or dive into the lava pit and ascend the nearby stairs. That's if you trigger the door to open to let you up those stairs. See, for some ungodly reason, Romero decided to hide the trigger for this in an inconspicuous spot, and I suspect many players don't naturally walk over this, triggering it more by accident. It's such an odd choice and can spell disaster for those who aren't aware of its existence. I feel it's such a weak addition to the level. Getting back to that Baron issue though, at the top of those steps are shotgunners, imps, and even two more Barons of Hell. You can deal with these a bit earlier, but I suspect many newcomers to this level dive straight into the yellow key area and give no thought to such things, meaning the player is now surrounded by Barons all over the place. It's rough. Remember also that most players will have entered this level in a weakened state, deprived of health and ammo from the previous outing. The last level was very mean, so this whole situation is kicking the player while they're already in the fetal position. And I have to say, I just don't like the vibes of this one. Perfect Hatred forces the player to play in one particular way. One of the great things about Doom is that the player is usually offered multiple ways to tackle a situation when it arises. You see a swarm of enemies and feel unprepared, you can backtrack and explore previous spaces to rearm and prepare yourself. This level however constantly pens the player into tight spaces, where there's no option but to face down the hordes of enemies in front of the player. The only option usually to get out of this is to dive onto a pain floor and eat that damage to get the space that they actually want. At the start of the level this is made even more frustrating when the player is starved of shotgun shells and needs to explore the pain floor in order to get more shotgun shells. I understand that Thy Flesh Consumed sells itself on the idea of being a true challenge for the most experienced Doom players, however I feel that there's a lot of times where this level doesn't meet that brief. It feels like a level that just wants to torment the player and limit the amount of space that the player can explore. It also feels like any mistake made by the player in this level is punished to a magnitude of 10. If you don't pick up the plasma rifle when the yellow key trap is activated, you're screwed, as the amount of shotgun shells needed to deal with all those Barons of Hell that just came into the level is going to push you to your absolute limit. If you don't ammo manage on this level, you're pretty much done for. And I just don't think that that's a very fun experience. Of course, many who love this level will say you should get good, learn the level, and prepare for the traps. But I say that preparing for something for the 10th time is just not that fun. It also doesn't help that I find this level to be incredibly bland visually. Thy Flesh Consumed isn't known for its varied texture use, but the mixture of woods, green marble and white rocks here leads to a very uninspired visual appearance. Ironically, we've seen better use of that white rock texture throughout Inferno. And I think that just about sums up my overall sentiments about this level. It's fine, and for those who want to learn traps and polish their route through a level, this one is a fine outing. I find the overuse of Barons of Hell and the poor balance between pain floors and the ways that you can avoid having to jump into them one of the level's more frustrating aspects. Much like with E4M1, I feel the desire to cater to hardcore Doom fans leads to a level which has got all the potential to be special, but is too often dragged down by abrupt difficulty spikes that are neither fun to engage with nor actually memorable outside of shotgunning Barons. It's funny that these two levels both fall into this same trope. I'd even go as far as to say this level would have benefited from some Doom 2 enemies being thrown into the mix. A bit more variety across the board here may have brought this level up a few levels for me. Overall though, it's not a bad level to me, but one that feels the very heavy hand of Romero trying to torment the player rather than making a fun overall experience. Instead of it being a fun level where the player is rewarded for exploration, the player is punished if they don't play the level the way it's intended. I don't want to say it, but perhaps if Romero put a bit more time into this level, it wouldn't feel quite as cheap or heavy-handed. Loading into this level for the first time can be quite overwhelming. You've got these shotgunners here who are flanking us, you've got pinkies, you've got imps, and then in the distance you can see we've got more pinkies and a bunch of cacodemons. I also think that putting a cacodemon right at the start though is a very nasty trick, because players who want to drop down to sort of escape this chaos, they immediately bump into that. It's definitely a choice. The thing is, as well, like I said in the opening part of this video, there really isn't that much space where you can safely take on the cacodemons. You have to drop down and you have to figure out that there's a rad suit down in the lava if you want to fight them down here. Now you can see that I'm making use of the lava space here, which is great. It is space that you can make use of, but unfortunately it's not going to be usable throughout the entire level. Once we run out of rad suits, we're not really going to want to be hanging around there. The thing as well is there's a little section here at the back of the opening area where there's a bunch of imps, there's some spectres, and I like to use this space to clear out the cacodemons safely. I prefer to take them down like this because you deal with them one-on-one, they don't really have a chance to gang up on you. And the thing in this level is that once the cacodemons start swarming you, that's when the real problems begin. But the opening to this one, unless you're prepared for it, can be quite overwhelming. It can be a very difficult experience, especially if you're coming in from the last level with barely any health, barely any ammo, and all of this is happening right in front of you. I'd actually say this is one of the levels which is actually easier to pistol start from than to actually bring in your previous level's stats. Now here's the thing, you do have a choice in what you do here. You can hit the switch back on the platform to the left and head straight towards the yellow key. The problem obviously there is that if you try to head up the steps, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, you've got these Barons of Hell, you've got the imps, the shotgunners all in this room here. You can take them down from here, and to be honest, I recommend doing this because it's not very fun to fight them on the stairs, in particular if you've got all the Barons who wake up when you grab the yellow key. It can be a bit of a nasty pinch to find yourself in. Unfortunately, this level does have moments like this, where you are kind of forced to deal with Barons en masse, and the problem with that obviously is because we're in Doom 1, you can't make use of the super shotgun, so that can become very grindy very quickly. Now as we head into this next section here, we're going to take down all the enemies before we jump in. If we jump into the lava pit here, the big problem I have with that walkable switch there, like I said in the opening part of the video, is that a lot of players are not going to find that naturally. A lot of players are only going to stumble upon that either in a blind panic trying to get out of this lava pit, or they're going to trigger it without knowing. So in which case I have to ask the question, why not just have it open to begin with? If that was the intent, it just feels a bit mean. I don't like to fight the Barons on the ledge inside there. The main reason for that is because you've got 4 Barons of Hell and you're stuck on that little platform at the far end of this room, and they can all take as much aim as they want at you, and you can duck and dive, but eventually you're either going to end up in the lava because you got a bit over enthusiastic, or you're going to end up taking a bunch of fireballs to the face. I would much rather deal with them at the door here. I'll use the shotgun here. So unfortunately, this is, like I said earlier, this is one of the things with this level, because it relies so heavily on the Barons of Hell to use them for difficulty. It means that there's a lot of moments like this where you're just kind of wearing down their health. It's not particularly fun to fight Barons of Hell in big numbers like this, and unfortunately this level relies a lot on them. So how much you like fighting Barons of Hell with your single barrel shotgun it will actually determine how much you like this level, I think. In terms of visuals, I guess this is in keeping with Thy Flesh Consumed. I'm not the biggest lover of Thy Flesh Consuved's overall aesthetic. I find it quite basic. The woods and the green marbles, they do kind of start blending into each other pretty aggressively, and even though I do like the way that there is a bit of variety in this map, I do feel also that it's nothing special. The white marble on the right hand side, it does kind of complement the space. It does make it feel a bit more kind of like you're moving through hell towards Earth, but at the same time it's all very basic and it's nothing to write home about. This is another point in the level where you basically have to stop to kill a bunch of barons. If you try to run past them, it's just difficult. I'm dealing with the pinkies here because I don't really want to be dealing with them when I'm heading towards the blue door at the end. This section here, I hear people say that they like it. Some people really do not like this bit. I don't think this is a particularly strong part of the level. It kind of feels a bit meandering, and while visually I like the white marble sort of rocks that we're seeing here, I like the fact that, you know, Romero's tried to use the flashing lights to make the lava pop a little bit, and I also like the fact that the enemies can come around if they are clever enough to make their way like that, and the spectres here. Unfortunately, like, it's all just a bit sloggy to me. It's like you're stuck in one spot, enemies are coming towards you, and you just have to deal with them. If you don't have the ammo to deal with them, then, you know, the level's done for you. Again, I do appreciate what Romero was shooting for here, but it all just kind of feels a little bit, whatever. I also like to take out these lost souls in sort of piece by piece fashion. If you don't, they'll teleport through when you shoot them, and they'll just pick you off when you head through later on. The thing as well is that this level also gets a lot easier when you grab the plasma rifle, especially because most players are going to be pistol starting this at some point. And I feel a lot of the difficulty comes from the fact that you're not expecting this many encounters against Barons of Hell. Unfortunately for me, I just think this level is a bit like, there's overuse of pain floors. I think a lot of these narrow walkways and spaces that you're forced to fight in, they're not that interesting to sort of have engagements with the enemies in. I always feel like with this level there's a lot of choke points and areas where you're being penned in, but when you're being penned in, you're not being given all the resources you need. You basically have to try and get out of those areas and put yourself in harm's way to be able to just do the basics of the level, and I think that's a problem I have with this one. I feel like at the start you're not given enough shotgun shells to deal with all those enemies. You've got to drop down into the lava to find the shotgun shells on the stairs, but the stairs here have lava on them, so they're a danger, and then you got to deal with more enemies. I feel like it's a continuation of the ideas that E4M1 had, where, you know, it tries to starve you of ammo, but ultimately for me, I just think this level it's just too grindy for me. I never really enjoy my time in Perfect Hatred. I always find myself just more frustrated than anything else with the fact that I feel like I'm having to stop. There's lots of things in the level that don't want me to be moving around as much without being punished. And I think that kind of goes against what I like in a lot of Doom levels. A lot of options have huge negatives in this level, and for me it just kind of takes away from the overall experience. But let me know, do you love Perfect Hatred? Do you think I'm being overly critical of it? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.